Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another program sponsored by the Hanson Youth Ministries as we go through the theme for this year, Bounce Back. We continue to celebrate, however, Women's Month. And as we have been doing all of this month, we have a dynamic panel of women here this evening. You see me here, I'm not a woman, which means what? I am not an expert in this subject matter. I'm just here to ask the question. And these women that you see here, they're the experts. They're going to give us the answers. So here's what I want you to do before you do anything else, before you do anything else. If you're on YouTube, can you just please just hit that share button and share this program on your broadcast, on your news feed? If you're on YouTube, can you please like and subscribe to our channel? And also, you can copy the link, just hit share and share this program to your friends in WhatsApp or in your chat, whatever way you can share this program. Just let the folks know that we are having a very dynamic program today on women's health. Now, men, I want to give you a very specific instruction. You need to be here. Why? Most of us know little to nothing about women. I mean, let's be honest. We may know about sports, a lot about sports. I mean, even some of us a lot about the Bible. But when it comes on to women, some of us we don't have it together. So you need to be here. If you have sons, ensure that your sons are sitting down and learning. This is not just a conversation just for women. This is a conversation about women. So call everybody, grab everybody, bring them together in your home, and then like, subscribe, and share this program on your news feed. We're going to pray, and then I'm going to introduce you to our panelists, and we're going to jump right in. Bow your heads with me. Father, I thank you so much for the blessing of women. I thank you for everything that they have done, for every sacrifice that they have made. And I pray especially for the panelists who are here this evening. May the words that come out of their mouth be an inspiration to all. Thank you so much for hearing and answering our prayers. In Jesus' name, I do pray. Amen. Once again, welcome to Hanson Youth Ministries, and welcome to our program this evening entitled Women's Health. So I'm going to go ahead and have the panelists introduce themselves. I believe they've all been on here before, but I want to ask them a special question. As you tell the folks how you've been doing and what's been going on, you can tell them what's been going on in your life, but I want you to tell them, I want you to share this with them or answer this question. What is the best thing about being a woman? I want to know. I can tell you I don't know the best thing about being a man, but what is the best thing or one of the best things about being a woman? Let's see who looks ready. Celeste looks confident. She looks ready. Khadija is thinking. Natalie looks like, I'm trying to, but Celeste, you just look like, listen, I got this. So
I guess I've been a woman for the longest here, so maybe I should know the answer to that question. Well, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Celeste Cox Baldwin. I am a board-certified internal medicine doctor. I have worked in many practice settings over the years, including having my own private practice. I've been a hospital-employed physician. I've also worked in federally qualified health centers, which are, the typical public clinic system, serving as medical director and director of the internal medicine residency program, primary care portion. I've also been the director of the primary care clerkship for Columbia University School of Physician and Surgeons and at Stanford Hospital. So in the last couple of years, I've transitioned. I've started working as a hospitalist in the pre-op medicine department, and I do a lot of volunteer work in my community here in Connecticut. And I think that given my bio, I think one of the best things about being a woman, as you often hear them say, is that I have the option to change my mind. I have options before me, and I think that being a woman is one of the most fantastic things. We are complex, biologically, psychologically, and physically, and even spiritually. And I think that, being not complex is just boring. So, it's best to be a woman.
Have mercy. Hey, no disagreements here. Celeste, thank you so much. I appreciate your answer. And I'm looking forward to hearing more of what you are going to share with our family this afternoon. Natalie, hi, my friend. Talk to me. Tell the folks what you've been up to and what's the best thing or one of the best things about being a woman.
Hi, Sean. I want to thank my Hanson Place family for inviting me again and for having me here again. I have a degree in marriage and family therapy, but I'm currently LPC, which is a professional counselor, LPCA, I should say, I'm sorry. And I work with children, primarily children and their families. And I'm also here in Connecticut. So the best thing about being a woman, especially a woman of color, which I'm very proud of, being a Latina, is that I have a very unique perspective on things. And I feel like it's about time that our voices are being heard and our voices are being accounted for, and being able to use my platform as a female, period, to just bring awareness to other groups that may have been marginalized or may have been oppressed as well.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Folks, you see and know from what you've heard, we're going to have a wonderful time this evening. It's going to be a very informative. I can tell you that right off the bat. So thank you, Natalie, for sharing. While you come on, if you're just coming on here, I'm going to pitch a question to you, especially, to the females, I should say, to the females on here. You can go ahead and put in the comment section, what is the best thing? What do you enjoy most about being a woman? Put it in the comments and let's see what's on your mind. We are all family here. There's no need to be shy. You don't have to be afraid. We are family here. So go ahead and put it in the chat. What is the best thing about being a woman? Khadija, how you been? Talk to us.
I've been good, Pastor Anderson. So my name is Khadija Ferdanki. I am a first-year resident in a family medicine program in upstate New York. When you first asked the question, what was the best thing about being a woman? The first answer that popped in my head was, well, we live longer than men. So that's pretty good. But then I thought about it a little bit more. And I think the best aspect of being a woman is that we have almost the expectation and the freedom to express our emotions freely. Men usually, you're supposed to be more tough or whatever, all these stereotypes are there. But I think it's a privilege for me as a provider to sometimes literally lay my hands on my patients while they're crying and to really feel with them, to have the opportunity to exercise that empathy and share in their emotions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Khadija. You just really hit me real hard. Y'all live longer. Y'all live longer than us. Oh my God. Well, anyways, all right. I mean, I literally saw it when I was growing up. I will share this real quick. My grandfather always seemed like the strong one, and I always my grandmother, however, kept saying, "What am I gonna do when my husband is dead and gone?" And we were looking at her like, "You crazy? Like he is the strong one. He's gonna outlive you. You're the one that's gonna look. You're the one's gonna die first." That's what we thought. We literally thought she would be the one that would die first. Well, my grandfather died about in 2010. My grandmother is still alive, pushing 98. So you're right. And the stats are right. So folks, I'm still not seeing my answers. The women who are on here, I want you to tell me, what is the best thing about being a woman? Now, tonight, Fanny said we are better at multitasking. Wow. Have mercy. All right. No disagreements here. No disagreements. Strength, power, and creativity. Thank you, Fearless Empress Brown. Thank you so much. I love it. Keep it coming. What's the best thing about being a woman? Now, let's begin. We're gonna begin smooth. We're gonna begin slow and smooth. And I want you, my illustrious panelists, to help the women understand the importance of health. So let's start out smoothly. What is, for a woman, what are some of the basic things that women should be doing to take care of themselves physically? What are some things that they should be doing to take care of their physical health? Let's begin with Celeste. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna begin with you first, and then let's work it. Let's work. Let's go Celeste, Khadija. Let's hear the MDs first, and then let's go to Natalie. I'm gonna have a, well, you can answer this question as well, and then I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna pivot on you. So, Celeste.
Well, it's interesting, and I think you'd be surprised that my answer probably mirrors a lot of what Natalie's going to address, because the principles of health really have to come from knowing yourself and advocating for yourself, right? That's where it starts. And so very early, I think a woman needs to be educated about her body and her health, and she has to have agency over those things, and she needs to care about herself enough to put in the work to be healthy. And so some of the things that we know make us healthy are, the things we put into our bodies, right? So we want to make sure that we are eating the right foods. And so from early, you want to feed your children healthy, nutritious, fresh foods, and teach them how to feed themselves well. We want to drink a lot of water. We want to learn early how to exercise and have that become a core and a part of our daily lives. I think we can always talk about the medical things, but I really do believe that health starts at home and it starts early. So building those building blocks early on in our homes and teaching our daughters and doing that for ourselves. When I first started in private practice, I would have these patients who would come in and say, I know something's wrong. I mean, I know my body. And I used to make fun of them a little bit. I'd roll my eyes a little bit like, yeah, I know. We all know our bodies. Because they would always want certain tests that they read about. I had a very affluent patient base when I first started, and they would demand a lot of things, and it was always that they knew their bodies, and so I would get a little frustrated with them. I was like, yeah, I know, but there is some merit to that, right? We do need to know our bodies, and we do need to advocate for ourselves, especially as women of color. I think we can be dismissed a lot in medical settings and in society in general. And so no one else is going to fight for you as hard as you're going to fight for yourself. So I could start it off with that. And I'll pass it over to Khadija, who's much closer to some of this medical stuff in school. So what would you say, Khadija?
I mean, I can really only echo your sentiments. I can think of specific patients. Last week, I was speaking with a patient. She's dealing with a bunch of chronic health issues, but I had difficulties getting her in the office. Why? Because her social life was kind of a mess, right? So if someone doesn't have the autonomy, the agency, isn't advocating for themselves, doesn't feel safe at home, just the basic things like that, usually their health, their physical health will also suffer because everything is intertwined, we are one. But also to agree with Celeste, really physical health, we're going back to the basics. It's what you're putting in your mouth. Are you getting the rest that you need? Are you active and exercising? Are you getting that balance? Going to the dentist 2 times a year, going to your doctor at least annually. People think that, oh, nothing's wrong with me, so why do I go? Because some of these things are silent, like high blood pressure, for example. You're thinking you feel fine, and then you come in and I get a reading of 150/80. Technically, I can't diagnose you on the first visit, but then, we have to keep an eye on that, because if you allow yourself to live in, like a high with high blood pressure, then you have increased risk for so many other things. So it's good even when you're feeling good to see your doctor, because we have to do all these screening tests to hopefully prevent or catch something early.
I thank you both for your answers. And just before I get to you, Natalie, as a matter of fact, the follow-up question that I'm going to ask, you can jump in, Natalie. You can either jump in or you can because I want to hear from Celeste and Khadijah, because my wife always tells me something. She always says you have the ideal and then you have the reality of life. What happens when you run into a mother, for example, that says, look, I just don't have the time. I am a single mother. I don't have the time to be eating these healthy food and exercising, as you are saying, or getting the adequate amount of sleep. I have to work 2 jobs to ensure that my family is being taken care of. I'm on the go a lot. I don't have time to do all these things because my job is to take care of my family. What do you say to someone like that?
I think when we have these conversations, it's important to also talk about privilege, right? And how some of these things may be accessible to some people or some groups of people, and how some of these things are not accessible. We also need to also try to meet people where they're at. I know as a mental health professional, I get that a lot. I don't have time for my mental health. I have to take care of my kids. I have to feed them. I have to go to work. I have to take care of this. So what I usually try to do is really try to meet them where they're at and let them know, like, the service is here in case you need it, or whenever you need it, whenever you're ready. And I think another piece of the conversation is also the readiness, and also having programs like this where we're reaching out to people and letting them know the importance of taking care of your health, especially as women. Especially, I know, like, in my culture, as much as, like, it's very machista, and as much as, like, the man is, like, in charge of everything, the woman is the one that is responsible for everything. I mean, the man can't function without the woman. So a lot of times, a lot of these burdens end up falling on the women. And again, I'm speaking from just, like, my background and understanding, like, the way my culture works. So kind of like having these conversations where it's like, yeah, you're going to feel that. You're going to feel overwhelmed if you're taking care of everything else, but you also need to, like, fill your cup first before you can fill somebody else's cup, and really having those conversations with them. I think it all starts with conversations and building the awareness of the importance of these things.
Right. So I've personally had to counsel patients on this, especially new moms who are dealing with that transitional period, right? Who come in and they say, like, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, the baby wakes up every 2 hours, I have to feed. What do? I don't have time to come in for my own appointments. The baby has an appointment every, like, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, everything, right? And I agree with Natalie. The first thing I do is I affirm the attention that she's giving to her family. Like, you're doing great. You're trying your best, and you're doing great. The second thing I do, though, is, as Natalie said, is to say, well, if you allow yourself to, be run down, how are you gonna be able to care for your child, right? I've had conversations with moms who, after countless weeks of not being able to eat and sleep and do these things, are having difficulties bonding with their children, right? And that's because you're tired and you're depressed and you need that support. So in the long run, even though you're trying to do good by your family, if you don't care for yourself, you can't care for them.
Yeah, I want to. Sorry, I just wanted to. I did want to just add to that. I think that we need to look at our current pandemic, and that will show us what not taking care of ourselves as a community can do. And we saw how Black and Brown communities disproportionately were affected in morbidity and mortality from the COVID virus. And it was those underlying health issues that put us at increased risk. It wasn't our brown skin, it was the health issues. And it was our neglect of ourselves and our health that put us in a very precarious position when COVID came, right? And so those underlying conditions included diabetes. A lot of people found out they had diabetes when they ended up going to the hospital for COVID. Hypertension, renal disease, which is rampant in the African-American community and undiagnosed, lung disease like COPD, which is chronic obstructive lung disease, pulmonary disease, and obesity, right? And so have a BMI over 30 and we're not taking care of ourselves. And so we know that our health has suffered because of a lot of the things we're going through, and the neglect, just trying to survive in this world, right? And trying to just survive in the United States. You have all the structural racism, and the cards are stacked against us in so many different ways, and that leads to stress. But there's something we talk about in medicine, which are the social determinants of health, right? And those social determinants of health include: where do you live? Is your community safe enough for you to go outside and exercise? Do you live in a food desert? Are the grocery stores around you giving you healthy foods? Um, your education access, your job, are you a wage earner? Are you kind of brutally underemployed, underinsured, your immigration status? All of these things are social issues, but they impact whether you can take a half day to go to the doctor. If you're a wage earner, you don't have time for that, right? Because then your family doesn't have money. Or whether you can buy your medications. Do you feed your kids, your family, or do you get the medication that the doctor has recommended? And so I personally, I've worked a lot with my residents and with my colleagues, trying to raise awareness that the patients are not just non-compliant, because it's easy to just be flippant and say, oh, here's Miss So-and-so, she's probably going to skip her appointment today. But understanding why they're skipping their appointments, right? So the medical community has to do a better job of helping with that social aspect, because honestly, the clinical component probably accounts for 25% of what makes people healthy. All that other stuff, the social stuff, the economic stuff, the educational stuff, that is what is impacting our communities disproportionately. Our bodies are fine, we're just abusing them.
Yeah. Can I just add one last thing?
Sure.
So you mentioned.
Just before you go, Khadija, just before you go, hold your point. Don't lose it. Folks, family on YouTube and Facebook, I want to hear from you. What do you do? What are some of the practices that you have put into place to take care of your physical health? Go ahead and put it in the comment section. I'm sorry, Khadija, go ahead.
I was just going to add about the education aspect. I'm not going to talk about acquiring degrees or anything like that, but something as basic as just understanding instructions that the physician gives you. Sometimes the medical professionals don't do a great job. We assume that people understand what we're saying, or we use jargon or things like that, and it's really a disservice to our community. So what I've been doing is I ask my patients to tell me, so that I know I'm doing a good job. Can you tell me what I just told you? And if they can explain it back to me and what I'm expecting of them, I feel a little bit better, because I've seen it with my own eyes where a provider comes in, they say all these things, and the patient nods and smiles, and they're like, yeah. And they didn't actually get it. So we have to also do a better job at disseminating that information in ways that people can access it and understand it.
On that note, and I'm so happy that you ended on that note, because let's talk about psychological health. All three of you touched on it, but help the average person understand. Is it that if I am if I'm feeling down, do I make an appointment with my doctor? I mean, how do I take care of my psychological health, and how do I know that this is the time to go and seek medical assistance? So how is a woman supposed to take care of her psychological health?
So just right off the bat, and this is for women and men and children as well, understanding that it's okay to get help. There's a big stigma within our community about getting help, and most of the time, I always tell my husband, you need to know when to refer. Because chances are, before they go to the doctor, before they come to me, they're going to come to their pastor. You need to know when to refer out. That was a side note. But understanding your body, understanding when something feels off, when you're feeling off moods if your mood changes a lot, or if you're feeling different for a couple of weeks, I would say go talk to your doctor if you have a doctor. Also do research and see what's available in your community. Most of the time, or the easiest way, is to let your doctor know what it is you're experiencing and what you're feeling, and they'll refer you to whoever they have a connection with in the community. But I would say, and don't wait until it gets to the point where you feel like you're too overwhelmed, you feel like you're drowning. And also, I would also add, you don't necessarily have to be upset or depressed or feeling like you're going crazy. You can go and talk to a mental health professional just because. You don't necessarily have to wait until you get to that point. Chances are when you've gone to that point, it's because like you're feeling like you're drowning, or you've gone a little farther off. Get help immediately, I would say, but also get help just because.
Can I piggyback on that? I have a dream, not to sound like Martin Luther King, but I have a dream that we would have primary psychological care, right? I think that if you've lived more than 30 minutes on Earth, okay, I'll give you a year or two. If you've lived a year or two on Earth, you probably have some things to unpack, right?
I hear that.
Yes. So I think that everybody should talk to somebody neutral. And I think I want us to get to the point where it's destigmatized, and that everybody, the same way we're going to check our blood sugar, we should go get a mental health check-in. And maybe it's like the dentist. Maybe you go twice a year and just unpack some stuff. But I really do believe that everybody's got issues.
Agreed.
So
Go ahead.
So for me, every time I see my patients for their annual physical, I actually use screening tools to try to see like where they fall on those scales. I talk to them, see how they're feeling as well. So I try to incorporate that mental health component in all my exams. I recently had a gentleman who came in complaining of chronic back pain, which was valid. He had multiple injuries and things like that, but it was worsening. And then I screened him, and he actually was scoring quite high on his depression scale. And there's actually an emotional component to pain at times. So I started him on medications. I offered him therapy. He wasn't interested in that. Started him on a specific medication that's supposed to also help with pain, and his pain improved. So we have to also consider that sometimes your emotions also affect your physical well-being, right? Directly.
For sure. I always I'm so adamant about this because mental health is such a it's the key to a lot of things. And a lot of times, we focus so much on the physical. My husband always talks about this, especially, at Seventh-day Adventist, we talk about the health message, and it's usually focused on food. He's like, what about dental health? What about mental health? And mental health is so important because it can literally affect your body. I mean, I'm not a doctor like you ladies are, but I understand how your emotional health can literally lead, if you don't find the right help, can lead to physical ailments as serious as high blood pressure and stuff like that. So it's so important. I wish that every church would have mock counseling sessions, just so people could see what it's like, and we can kind of take that mystery away from mental health, or start unraveling that stigmatization around mental health only being for crazy people.
Pastor Anderson, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Celeste.
I just wanted to add one thing. I don't want us to come away. I don't want the audience to think that what we're saying is that when you have a mental health problem that, you're psychosomatic and it starts, you start to think up physical problems. It literally hurts your body and down to the DNA, right? And so there have been studies that have looked at the effects of chronic stress on our DNA. And the way our DNA is wrapped up, imagine a pair of shoelaces. On the ends of your shoelaces, in order for it to not unravel, you have that little plastic cap, and that's called a telomere. And what studies have shown are that people who undergo chronic stress, their telomere, that little cap at the end of their shoelace, their DNA shoelace, it shortens. And that is the aging process, right? And so it has been shown that even when you compare Black women to Caucasian women, our telomeres are shorter, right? And someone looked further, they said, well, maybe that's economics, the stress of money. It actually is not, because they matched economically equal white women and Black women. And the Black women, even though they were affluent, their telomeres were on average shorter. And so that puts us at higher risk for tons of diseases. And it makes us we're aging faster than the general population. And so finding ways to manage our stress any way we can, whether it's exercise or offloading some of that baggage like we talked about, it's really important. The mental health component is not in our heads, it's physically killing us.
Wow. Now, thank you, folks. I told you they're coming. These women, they know their stuff. Now, Natalie, you touched on something, and I want to kind of bring you into the world of a pastor. I can speak as a pastor. I haven't been a pastor for that long. I've been since 2017. But whenever it comes on to referring persons, this is what we always hear. It's too expensive. Counseling is too expensive. We can't afford to do it. So my question is, because there are people watching right now who that is in their heads, it's too expensive. Tell me, because I honestly do not know. Is it expensive? Is counseling only affordable to people who have good insurance policies, or is it? Are they free? For example, where you are, and Khadija, you can share where you are, and Celeste, where you are. Are there free services to people who need counseling, or do you need a good insurance package in order to afford getting counseling?
And again, that's why I mentioned the whole privilege piece. And that's why, that's another stigma to it, right? Counseling is super expensive, and when you see it on TV, it's usually two white people, and it's in this fancy office, so you already kind of have that like in the back of your mind, like, oh, I could never afford something like that. Yes and no. Again, we're talking, especially when we're talking about women in health, we understand that there are some communities that can't necessarily afford health insurance, or that don't have health insurance. A big part of my job is working with families who are undocumented, and they don't have health insurance. Some of them don't. It's important. It's really important to let people know that if you go to your doctor, if you go to an emergency room and you tell them that this is what I'm going through, they can refer you to somewhere. A lot of places also have what we call scaling fees, right? So if you explain, not every place does. You would have to do your research, but some places do have. I know New York has really good resources. If you call, I think they even have like a mental health hotline. I know if they call like 411, I don't know the number.
311.
Yeah.
I know 311 is a general. I'm sorry. I'm not sure about the mental
health. No. I mean, if you call them and let them know this is what's going on, they can refer you to a lot of places, and you tell them I can't afford it. They can refer you to places in the community where they would have something more affordable. It does not mean that your care is going to be less, it's not going to be as good. It does not mean that. It just means that this is what is available for you. That's one thing off the top of my head. Insurance you can look in your insurance and see what covers it. If you do have insurance, who covers it, and you can like go on the internet and look that up too. The easiest way I would say is to go to your primary care and let them know, like, this is what I'm experiencing. And they would already have this, from just my understanding, and Celeste and Khadija can let me know if this is true or not. They would already have like places where they can refer you to as well. If not, somebody on staff. Sometimes, especially in these community clinics, they usually have like a social worker or a clinical therapist on staff with them. So off the top of my head, those are just a few things I can think of. I know I live in Connecticut. And I know in my agency, like I said, they use a scaling. They have a specific program where some families who've experienced severe trauma, there's something called VOCA. It stands for something. I'm not even going to go into that right now, but that would cover their treatment. But again, you would have to meet specific criteria and stuff like that. But it all depends where you live and what are the resources around you. But there are accessible places for you if you do or if you do not have insurance.
Thank you so much. Deirdre commented and said, I guess NYC Well is
Yes.
that place that you can go if you need that psychological help. All right, Celeste and Khadija, go ahead. Let me hear your points, and then we're gonna move on.
Okay, yeah, just quickly, a lot of the federally qualified health centers, these are the clinics, the community health centers that receive federal funding. They have to have some component of mental health referral system. So unfortunately, the need is great and the providers are few. So there can be very long wait lists to get in to see a therapist. But I do think that, you know, primary care doctors play a major role in kind of helping to manage the patients who can be managed on an outpatient basis until they can see a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist. So there's that. I would also say that with, you know, COVID, we've also seen all these hotlines that have opened up for mental health support, and also that telehealth visits have been on the rise, and that now insurance will pay for some of these services, whereas in the past they wouldn't. So I do think that we are going to see a lot more access to mental health services. I think a lot of people are into it, are studying it, and are getting their certifications, so that's great. But I do think that telehealth and being able to, you know, dial up a provider is going to open access to people moving forward.
Thank you, Celeste. Khadija?
So I don't want to be redundant. I agree with everything that Natalie and Celeste already said. There's another hotline that I just share. It's called 1-800-662-HELP. And if you're experiencing anything from like substance abuse to mental health services, they'll be able to assist with that. Otherwise, services vary based on where you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Khadija. Time is running away from us. I can't believe it that time is running away from us. Celeste, I'm going to ask you this question due to the interest of time. Again, folks, for those of you who are just coming in, I want to welcome you to another program sponsored by the Hanson Place Youth Ministries. This evening, we're talking about women's health. If you haven't done so already, I invite you to please go ahead, share this program on your news feed, like and subscribe to our page, because we want to get the word out to as many persons as possible. If you have your sons, grab them, tell them to come sit in the room. If you're married, you're a woman married to your husband, grab your husband, tell him to come sit in the room, because he needs to hear these things as well. If you have a sister or a mother or aunt, somebody who needs to hear this, lead them to this site right now so that they can hear this conversation, because we are going into practical things. Celeste, you know what? I'm going to throw the question out to the audience, and then Celeste, I want you to answer it. Okay. Folks, family on YouTube and Facebook, how do you go about choosing a primary care physician? How do you go about, and I really and truly, folks, listen to me. I want to know, okay? I really want to know. How do you go about choosing a primary care physician? Is it that you just go on Google and just type in whatever name comes up first? You just work with it? How do you do that? Celeste?
Well, you choose a woman. That's what you do.
Wait, what do they do?
You find a woman. It's actually not completely a joke.
Yeah.
Because you need somebody who's going to listen to you, right? And chances are a woman is going to take the time to hear what you're saying. So I'm not knocking on my male colleagues, but for my family here, because we're family, right? Privately here, I'm telling you, find a woman doctor.
Wait, I see Nikisha commenting in the section. So true. Old comment. Yeah, I mean, can some men, if there are any male doctors on here,
no,
speak up now, because I mean, I don't know what's going on here. But anyways, I'm outnumbered, so I'm just gonna agree with Celeste.
It's Women's History Month. I can say it this month. I can say it this month, and for last month, if you can find a black one, even better, or a Latina, right? Because women tend to be more empathetic. They, you know, when I joined my private practice years ago, I joined 2 men and another woman. And because I was the junior partner, sometimes I would see their runoff, right, when they were busy. And the male doctors, patients, they would come in the room And they would start weeping and telling me these stories from their childhood and their husbands. And I go back to my partners. I was like, did you know that Mrs. X was doing? He's like, yeah, we never talk about that. And they were not interested to hear even more. Or I would say, oh my gosh, I'm seeing your patient again. She cries every time I see her. And he's like, she never cries with me. Well, there's a reason for that. I think the female doctors are probably a lot more open, and you want to pick somebody who you can have a dialogue with. And all jokes aside, whoever you can have a dialogue with if you feel comfortable with them. And referral is important. I mean, we pick things. People choose different things in their lives with much more care than they choose their doctors. A lot of times we're looking at the list from the insurance company and like, okay, well, this one's convenient to my job, and it's in the plan, so I guess I'll pick that person. We have to be a little more discriminating, and look around for. I mean, I hate online reviews because usually disgruntled people do it. Either they love you or they hate you. You don't get the in between.
Right.
But do a little due diligence, and sometimes the most available person is not the person you want to hop in with.
It's true.
I will just put that
Sometimes
out
there's
there.
a reason why they're available.
It's like the hairdresser or the barber, right? Right, Pastor Anderson, you don't go to the available barber. If everybody's letting that barber open, you better sit and wait for the guy with the line.
Oh man, thank you so much, Celeste. And the next question I'm going to pose, Khadijah, Natalie, and even we can loop back around to Celeste. You can take a stab at it as well. I just wanted to see if we can get through all of our questions, hopefully by the grace of God, by this evening. However, folks, I am not hearing the answers. I see you guys agreeing with Celeste, but I don't see you sharing. How do you go about finding a primary care doctor? If you move to a new place, how do you go about doing that? Is it that you do, as Celeste said, you just call up your insurance company, find the one that's closest to your job, more convenient, and that's the one that you do? Do you go on YouTube? Google the doctor, look at their reviews and choose them that way? Or do you just close your eyes and point and say, okay, that's the one? How do you go about choosing a primary care physician? Go ahead and populate the chat. I want to hear from you. Khadijah, I'll start with you. Natalie and Celeste, you can take it wherever you see fit. Is it enough for a woman to just have a primary care physician, or is an OBGYN needed as well? Khadijah.
Okay. So I'm a little biased, but I'm going to actually try to be as fair as possible. So family doctors, we do a variety of things, but I think it's also important to know your limitations, right? Because different specialties specialize in different areas. So I do like well woman visits where we'll do like their gynecological exam. I'll go through their birthing history. I'll go through contraception planning and all these family planning and all those sorts of things. But for more complicated things, I actually do refer out. So because I'm in a residency program, I'm blessed to also be directly trained under many specialties. So in our clinic, we have an OBGYN who comes, I think, once a week, and we work with him as well in his clinic. And for anything that, for example, like infertility, I can do the first couple of workup, but then I'm going to need an OBGYN to do specific procedures to evaluate your uterus and your fallopian tubes and things like that. So I think a primary care physician is important, but really we're kind of like the gateway, right? And then as I see fit and as needed, I'll refer out.
Okay. Now, Khadijah, I am so sorry. I made the mistake that I believe it was you that mentioned that we sometimes use jargon and assume that people understand. And that's my fault. That's my fault. For a 14-year-old girl, a 15-year-old girl sitting there watching this program, asking them, what on earth is a OBG? Why?
That's true. So
yeah, just explain.
OBGYN. So OB stands for obstetrics and GYN for gynecology. So obstetrics has to do with, pregnancy and everything that encompasses that. So while you're pregnant, after you deliver, and gynecology deals with all the health concerns for our female reproductive health. So whether that's pap smears or, exams, things like that, infertility. So it's a wide range that they can focus on.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Khadija. Natalie, do you have anything to add? And then Celeste, do you have anything to add to this? Is a primary care enough from your experience?
No. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, there's not much I could add, but I would also say it depends on what your needs are.
Absolutely. Right. I'm just going to quickly say, when you go into an office building and sometimes the 13th floor is missing, it's a superstitious thing, right?
Yeah.
My patients would come in and they would love me so much. And they were like, you know what? It takes so long to go to the GYN. Can you just do my PAP? And I told them, that is the 13th floor. For me, it does not exist in my world. I mean, yes, if you want to give me some complaints, I talk about a sex history and all those things, but I'm not digging in there. I don't want to. I have the skills, but if something's wrong, what am I going to do? I'm sending you to the OBGYN. Am I embarrassing you, Pastor Anderson?
Listen, I opened the door. So
right in.
I am the one that says, and we're about to get even more serious. So this is just the gateway in, because we're going in deep.
That's right. We're about to go in deep. We got to talk about what you need to do and when you need to do it. So let's do it.
We're going in. We're going in. Pray for me, folks. If you realize I'm here sweating, but I am holding the fort. We are pushing forward. Again, folks, welcome to another program sponsored by the Hanson Place Youth Ministries. Tonight or this evening, we're talking about women's health. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe to our YouTube page or share this broadcast on your YouTube news feed so that others can know that we're talking about real life, real situations, real things here. And now, Celeste, the door is open, so let's go down into the door. Now, Natalie, you're a mom. Celeste, you're a mom. Khadija, you are a MD, and Celeste also is an MD. So I'm sure you guys have received training, some hard knocks, some professional. At what age are y'all ready? And YouTube folks, Facebook folks, I need your answers. Do not be silent on me with this one. At what age? We're going to talk about sexual health now, the big S. At what age should a mother start talking to her child about sexual health or about sex?
I actually get this question a lot. Again, I speak a lot to my context because I feel like if you're West Indian or if you're African American, we have a lot of like overlap and intersections. So I work a lot with the Latino community, and that's just something we don't talk about, and it's something we should talk about. So a lot of parents usually come, like, I know when they're gonna ask me this question because they're like nervous, biting their nails, like sweating. I'm like, listen, we gotta talk about penis, vagina, breasts, everything. Like we're talking about our eyes, our nose, and our cheeks and our mouths, because we need to normalize this. And one of the things I tell them, if my baby can't come to me and talk about these things, they're gonna go talk about it with somebody who don't know nothing. So it's important to have these conversations. And I usually tell them, let the child come to you. When your child starts asking certain questions, that if they're asking it's because they're already thinking it. That's one of my first things that I tell them. If you feel like this is a conversation that you just need to have it and have it open and let them know, like, and of course let your child know, like, if you're feeling nervous about it. Usually they're really good at sensing that, but it's important for you to talk about these things as if you're talking about your hand or your nails or your hair or your eyes. Because if they can't come to you as a safe person, they're going to go to somebody else. And we want to make sure as parents that we are that safe person for them. If you really feel like you cannot have that conversation, I would say, and if you're suspecting certain things have happened or you're not sure, bring them to your doctor, bring them to a professional.
So Natalie, Are you saying to me, wait, well, let me say this. To the folks who have submitted answers, I love y'all. Y'all are great. I'm seeing a few answers here for fourth grade. Nikisha said, when the child hits puberty. Fearless Empress Brown says, from the day she asked me how she got in my belly.
Yeah.
Now, Natalie, I heard you say something, and I just want you to elaborate a little bit more, because I'm going to share with you now from my background. You said wait until the child comes to you. Now, Natalie, I grew up Jamaican. I would never.
Mm-hmm.
I never have, and at this point, no need to go to my mama or my daddy and ask them and say to them, look, you know, I'm thinking about sex. I probably would be struck dead with a belt, a bat. I mean, so what is your, because see, not every child will feel comfortable based upon their cultural background going to their parents. So is there a point where the parents should initiate it, or
So I would say you start initiating, and again, everybody has different beliefs on this. This is a very charged question. So again, go with what also like what's relevant within your context. But for example, I started with my daughter. I never taught her all the nicknames for private parts. As soon as she started gaining that awareness, like about her hands and her body, honey, this is your vagina. This is your butt. This is your chest. We went over that. These are places that people cannot touch, right? These are places that if you need help, you need to come to mommy and daddy and ask. Started that really young, and it's a little embarrassing because sometimes she'll yell, my vagina hurts, like randomly. But it's important. It's important that we teach them. And again, everybody has a different thing for this, but it's important that you start having these conversations. And we always think about sex as like sexual intercourse. Sex is a lot. It covers a lot of things, right? And a big part of as who we are as humans is our sexual identity, right? Who we are, who we feel, what we feel more attracted as. So understand that when we're talking about sex, it's not just sexual intercourse. We're talking about a part of who we are. And it's important to really normalize this for kids. And you're right, some of them are not going to feel normal. But as a parent, sometimes you need to take that first step and let them know, hey, either this is a conversation that we have to have or that we're going to have in the future. I want you to know that I'm a safe person. And if you need guidance, reach out for guidance, because these are hard conversations that we have to have with our children, especially now and especially in the context that we're living in.
Yes.
I
Thank you,
absolutely agree.
Natalie.
I absolutely agree. You start early. I actually don't think I wouldn't wait for any child to come to me. Like my kids, I wish I could bring them in so you can see them roll their eyes. I talk about it. I started early, and I do it often. And they to the point where they joke that mommy is sex obsessed, but I'm not. Right? I think that just as Natalie said, sex is not about sexual intercourse. It's about sexual identity. It's about sexual agency. Because if you don't teach them that these are your parts, you are in control of these things. Things can happen to your child because of your silence and your embarrassment. And we are stewards of these children, these precious souls. So, get over yourselves. I'm sorry. Get over yourselves. We are in such a sexualized society. We have the internet. There are all these voices telling them things in cartoons, popping up on their YouTube commercials, scrolling on the bottom. You can't leave it to chance at this point. You need to start early. And from the time, like Netta said, I love that. And that's what I do. No nicknames. We don't do nicknames, right? And I still have trouble. I think they're a little resistant because they know I want them to say the word. And so they don't want to say the word, but they know, because we've always just been very open about that. But I do want to stress the point of letting them have agency and control, because if you don't, you set your kids up for potential abuse, and I'm not just talking about childhood abuse, but sexual coercion as teenagers, and intimate partner abuse later in life, you need to teach them early what's what and what they're in control of.
So I don't have children, so I can't speak from that perspective. I can only speak from my own. My parents actually spoke to me very young. Just like Natalie said, my dad was like, these are your specific parts, vagina. You use the correct terms, no other lingo is necessary. This is what it is, right? And people aren't allowed to touch you. And then as they advance in age, your conversation changes. And as the child has inquiry or like whatever else, your conversation changes too. And I think it's important, and I might be going into an interesting territory. I'm just going to do it though. We are a Christian community. Totally get it. But if you care for your child, sometimes it's going to mean you're going to have to agree to disagree with the choices that they make. All right? As Celeste says, it's about agency. And for example, when we talk about contraception, you know, our church preaches that you're going to keep yourself until you're married, but most people don't. That's just a fact. So then we need to teach our kids also about safe sexual practices, the amount of partners that they should have, you know, like less is better, and the risks, and the risks that are there with or without condoms and other protective measures. We need to talk about screening for sexually transmitted diseases. If we want to keep our kids healthy and safe, it means not providing them with limited information, but with all the opportunities that are available. And it's not just abstinence. And I know that that's going to be a little bit murky maybe for a couple people, but it's just the truth.
You see, folks, thank you, Khadija. I love this panelist because this panel right here, they're just going where I want to go. When we come on here, we don't just talk about topics and just skirt around the issues. We hit at the heart of the matter, and we seek to get real, relevant answers for what's going on in society. Khadija, I am so happy that you went there, because my next question was going to go there, and let's take it a step further. Now, should is it wrong for Christian parents to provide their daughters, don't go to the school yet, yes, that's the one, to provide their daughters with contraceptives if they know that they're sexually active? Is that parent wrong?
No.
No, Natalie said.
No.
Natalie, talk to me. What?
We need to
hold on, Natalie. Hold on a moment. Hold on a moment, Natalie. Just a moment. Just a moment. Hold it, folks. I want to hear your point of view as well. Do you agree if your friend came to you and says, "Look, my daughter is having sex. I don't want her to get pregnant. I don't want her to get an STD. So I make sure that she has contraceptives." Is she right? Is she wrong? Is God displeased with that? Folks on YouTube and Facebook, talk to me. Natalie, go ahead. So sorry.
I think, again, we need to, there's something called sex education, and then there's like the talk or whatever. I think we kind of like mix the two. Sex education starts from small. So you're having these conversations, so that way when your daughter, your son says, "Oh, I feel attracted, I want to do this," they feel comfortable enough to come talk to you about it, right? The sex education part takes place from babies. Very important. When my mom gave me this talk, as soon as I hit puberty, she said, "You can get pregnant if you decide to have sex." She told me, if I decide, right? She's like, "This is what we believe, but you are your own person. You're going to have to make this decision. If you decide, these are the barrier methods. These are what you're supposed to do, whatever it was," right? At the end of the day, I made my choice. We like to think that because we're Seventh-day Adventists and we have this truth and we live in this bubble. Listen, your children are getting it from school, even in an SDA school. I'm sorry to say it. Your children, we are getting bombarded from all avenues. It's not wrong. It's absolutely not wrong. Think about, would you rather have your daughter or your son come home and tell you, I got sick Or would you rather your son or daughter tell you, like, yeah, mom, I messed up, but I took the right precautions or whatever it was? Think of it from that perspective. It is not wrong. It is absolutely not wrong. Just because it's not what you believe in, understand that your children, I mean, obviously you have to put limits and stuff like that, but understand that your children eventually become adults and they have to make their own decisions. And understanding that this is a part of you protecting them. It may not be what you agree with. That's completely different. You got to take that up with the Lord. You got to, pray about it, fast, whatever it is you got to do it. But understand that your child's safety is first, and whoever else they're getting in contact with is first.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you. Producers, give me some answers from the comment section there. Celeste.
I would love to jump in here. I don't know where to jump in, but I'm just going to jump in. I do not think. Okay, so we need to teach our children the biblical standards.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we need to have relationship with our kids, and we need to mirror God's relationship with us as His children, right? And so God has a standard for us, but we do have free will, right? And just because we make decisions that are not in line and in keeping with what God wants for us, does He reject us and walk away and leave us to our own devices? No, He doesn't do that. He loves us through it, and we have to determine what does that love look like as human parents, right? How are we going to support our children through things? I want to say that kids, we're talking about, kids making decisions to do things. And sometimes, to be quite honest, decisions are made for kids, right? And so things happen. And if we place such an emphasis, like sex is this ridiculously outweighed sin compared to lying and stealing and, cheating, I think it's unfair. And I think it's a very chauvinistic approach, right, to our salvation, because it tends to be that the woman, we're telling the woman, save yourself, right? Like, this is Women's History Month. Let's talk about it. We're talking about, you need to be pure. You need to be saving yourself because you're the one who's the stain's going to show, right? And I will give an example. I remember going to our church schools, and at the time of puberty, one of our very well-intentioned older teachers at the school gave us a parable about purity. And I remember her saying to the young ladies in the class that, you are like a white dress. You are a white dress in the boutique, and you are hanging there for all to see. And if someone comes with their dirty hands and touches your white dress, right, you as the white dress, and I will never forget this, she said, slightly soiled but greatly reduced in value. And that was so damaging to generations of girls, right? And young men. And so I just really want us to get past this point of thinking that this is the end all and be all. Like, so when something happens to a child, or a child makes a bad decision, they're feeling so devalued that not only are they not coming to you as a parent, they have been separated from God. We've got to stop this, right? We have to stop it. And so I understand the question we're talking about, whether you are condoning their activity and providing things to them. I'm more focused on their esteem and their relationship with you and their relationship with God, because it could take decades for them to get right, to fix that relationship with God. And so I would like to just put that out there, how we talk about sex and sexual purity and how it is uneven in this Women's History Month, that we talk about that and be plain.
Khadija, thank you so much, Celeste. Khadija, do you have anything to add?
I agree with what everyone else said. I personally, I started the whole conversation.
You opened the door.
So clearly, I don't believe that it is wrong. I think we have to protect our children, and in protecting them, we have to give them the complete information and give them the autonomy. I'm speaking over my words. Autonomy to make their own decisions, right? And we may not always agree, but that's okay. I've delivered babies for 14-year-old girls, right? And while they're happy and cute, but what I see is a baby holding a baby, right? So we need to educate our kids about the options that they have and support them through it, because you want them to speak to you. And if not, hopefully they'll speak to their provider. I have these conversations with my patients all the time. I ask them and I try to make it like normal for them. I ask all my patients, and it's a simple question that you ask. You don't have to make it a taboo. Just say, are you having sex? Are you having sex with boys, girls, or both? You have to go into that conversation too, right? Do you use protection? And even then, sometimes I don't even use the word protection. Do you use condoms? What are you using to protect yourself? What, things like that. Do you feel safe in your relationship? You have to have these conversations, because you'll be surprised to know the amount of how unhealthy sometimes these relationships and abusive these relationships can be. You're not having these conversations with your children, so then they just kind of suffer silently.
I mean, and what you said is very important, because especially for, let's say, a teenager whom their parents didn't speak to them about sex, and they're learning about sex from pornography. That means that when they engage with somebody, the example, the image that they have in their minds is that, and so they're going to model or attempt to model what they see and understand to be healthy sexual behavior. And so if it can become dangerous. It's like experimenting. They're experimenting on each other. And so parents are the gate. We are, those of you who are parents, those of us who are parents, we are like the gatekeepers. And even if we're not parents, even if we are like spiritual parents, we're entrusted to watch over somebody, whether we are godparents or in the church setting. We act as fathers and mothers to other children, of course, with permission. We should be helping our youth through this process. Now,
Pastor, I'm so sorry. Can I just make a small point there with the
go ahead. It's Women's Month.
It's my prerogative, right? I want to make a very, very firm point about the access that children have to pornography now compared to in the past. There were firewalls, there were paywalls. All of that is gone. It's all out there. It's open on the internet. And they have full access. And you think you have controls on those devices, but they have a lot more access than you think. And they have friends who have access. So if it's not on your device, they're seeing things. The damaging thing about pornography is it's usually from a male-dominated perspective, right? Based on male fantasies, where the woman is giving or being taken from, right? And so again, come back, I keep talking about agency. It is very important to understand that if you're not talking to your children about this, and they're seeing how sex works, supposedly, on the internet, they're developing not only an appetite, but an understanding of this imbalance of power in the sexual relationship, and this is damaging to them going forward. And so you have to have the conversation. And if you're uncomfortable having the conversation, there are resources that you can reach out to. I know some physicians who do sex talks, workshops for parents. I'm happy to talk to anyone's kid. I'm chatty. That might be weird because they know you know me, but I mean, there are resources out there. We cannot just leave it to chance. So I just wanted to talk about the pornography. It's out there. They're seeing it.
And can I just add one little thing about the whole contraceptive thing? And I'm seeing in the chat, like some people are saying, like if you're talking about it, it's kind of like giving them. It's like you're kind of like walking a tightrope type of thing. The way that I explain certain things, so right, like I said, I'm a mental health professional, and sometimes when I approach people or children about certain skills, they're like, I don't really need that. The best way that I could explain it is like, think of your phone. right? Your phone. You have lots of apps on your phone, right? You probably use your texting app, your social media apps, and your actually to make phone calls, right? But you have other apps, like you have a calculator, you have a flashlight if you have a smartphone, right? You have like the notepad, right? Think of having a conversation about contraceptives as like a skill or like one of those apps that you have just in case. Just in case. You're not really going to be using it all the time, are you? Because you're going to be using all your other apps. But if you're in a pinch, if you're in a dark room, you can just turn on your flashlight app on your phone. Think of it that way. It's something that you have in your back pocket. It's something that when we're talking about this, it's not like you're telling them. And if you have that structure in your home where you have explained to them, like, this is not what we believe in, but you are this age and this is your decision for you to make, they're going to understand and they're going to know. They're going to know if you have that structure around them, if you've been having the conversations with them, if you've been explaining everything to them, if you've been opening up that relationship where they feel open and comfortable enough to come and talk to you, they're going to know.
Yeah, and we're by no means saying go out and have
yeah, for sure.
children. No, we're not saying that.
Especially not during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, you still are parenting, right? You're still telling them what the standard is. You still express the expectations for them that are age appropriate. We're not letting our kids have the keys to the, to the house and say, hey, we'll be back. You still have boundaries that the children will live under, but you do need to have a full conversation and be realistic about the world that we're living in.
Yes. I mean, and what you guys are saying is true, and it's a rough topic. So I won't even act as if though it's something simple to deal with. There's a difference between telling your children, "Hey, go out there and have sex," is perfectly fine, versus if you're doing it, I want to make sure that you don't contract anything, and I want folks to understand that when you are, if you decide to provide your children with contraceptive, you're not telling that child to go out there and have sex. You're saying to that child, if you do, I want to make sure that you are safe. So that's a different, it's two different things. So we're not supposed to confuse the thing to make it believe that if you are protecting your child or children from getting harm because they're disobeying you, that means that you are encouraging them to do so. But
Pastor, sorry, one last thing. I know I keep saying one last thing, but also explaining to them that there is harm that is not physical, right? There is spiritual harm and there is emotional harm. And so as we are talking to them, they can't really think past the physical because their hormones are raging. But our jobs are to continue to tell them what the expectation is, what the standard is, and why that is the standard. The standard is not don't have sex before marriage because you might get pregnant or you might get an STD. It's because sex was designed for a purpose. And, we go back to why it is and what it does to your marriage relationship should you make poor choices earlier on. And so even while we're giving them those options, we should also still try to teach and coach them back into the proper behaviors, because that's what God does with us, right?
I mean, correct.
Can I just add one last thing? So it's also really important for the parents to not come in this conversation from like a holy art thou kind of perspective. Meet your children where they are and be honest about your own past, because everyone has a past. And if we're quite honest, not everyone in the church practices everything the same way all the time, because there's a road to salvation, and sometimes you may dip here, dip there, and we have to be honest with our children, right? And it's not just for sex, it's for anything, right? We're not perfect human beings, and I think it's important to have open and honest conversations with our children. Don't be hypocrites when you're having this conversation is what I'm trying to say.
They can smell it a mile away.
Now, ladies, thank you so much. Facebook and YouTube family, thank you so much. Now, oh my Lord, time is upon us. Now, we spoke about on a personal level what should be done. What about on a structural level? Should let's say a Christian school, a SDA school, have contraceptives available as part of their sexual education class? Are they, or is it that if a school, if this is done on a systematic level, would that institution be overstepping its bounds, so to speak? What say you? Very quickly, you each have 1 minute. Folks on Facebook and YouTube, I want to hear from you. Is this sexual education, is it limited to just personal between parent and child, or should Christian schools, should SDA schools be okay with teaching sexual education classes and saying, hey, we have contraceptives here, or let me be more specific, condoms here available for you in case you're engaging in such behavior? Who wants to go first? You got a minute. And there was silence.
I'm gonna go. I'm pretty firm in my belief in this. I think yes, it should be done. If you look at all the states in America where they teach abstinence-only curriculum, there's actually, ironically, not a decrease in teenage pregnancies there, ironically. So I think we need to provide full information at all times. Just be honest about the options that are available. And if we're trying to meet people where they are, we have to also meet their needs. And if we need to provide contraception like condoms, I'm going to say yes, that we should limit ourselves in that regard.
Thank you, Khadija. Ladies,
so I went to public school for most of my life, and that was not even a debate. It was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go, like my friends, I'm gonna go to the nurse's office and get a condom. It was like that. And I'm pretty sure that deterred a lot, a lot of things, and a lot of sexually transmitted diseases and stuff like that. But the reality is the world that we live in. We got to take into account the world that we live in. We have to take into account, as much as we're sheltering our children, what's out there, and understanding that the more we avoid certain conversations, the more they're going to do it, and they're going to do it wrong, or they're going to make a mistake, or you get what I'm saying? So we have to be open. Even in our schools, we need to be open to this, and we need to understand that this is something that, as natural as it is, and as much as we want to like have them weigh or whatever it is, they're going to do. They're teenagers. Their hormones are all over the place, right? They're going to do things that we don't necessarily approve of. But just because we don't approve of it does not mean that we don't have to like take those precautions and think ahead of time for them.
Now, this question there, Celeste, before you go, and maybe you can answer this. Somebody was asking, if the school makes available, what if the parent disagrees? And I want to know, as a parent, Celeste, because I know you have children in high school. Where's Christian now? Is he in college yet?
No. He's 16.
He's 16. Is that something that you consider when enrolling your child in school, the sexual education program that the school provides?
Well, in my personal case, no, because I'm talking about it. And so I actually get a little territorial when they start talking about it. And I'm like, well, who told you could talk like, I want to know what you're going to tell them, because I've been having this conversation and I'm doing it from a Christian's perspective. So I do want to know what the school is doing, what they're saying. But when we talked about Christian schools, I believe that the Christian schools should be giving a full education on the pros and the cons and both sides and all of the options. When it comes to providing prophylactics, I'm not thrilled with the thought, but I did see someone in the chat saying with the parents' permission. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, the kids aren't going to tell, but when we go to school, we have to sign a waiver to get Tylenol, right? Like the school can't just give your kid Tylenol unless you say it's okay to give them Benadryl or Tylenol. So I think that it could be on the list of medical devices and medications that are permissible. And so for you as a family, you do get to opt in or opt out, but perhaps it should be on the list because it's about their health.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for your answers. Now, we're coming down to the nitty-gritty, and I have two questions left. and we want to wrap this up within 8 minutes. And the question I'm about to ask, we could have taken this whole time to discuss it, but I want you to try and do your best to answer it in 1 minute, if possible. What would you say to a husband who says to their wives that their bodies belong to them and therefore they dictate what happens to it?
No.
You got the wrong husband.
For real.
Yeah. No.
That's
That
not
is
even
not a thing.
conversation, bro. Like, no.
I would say you needed to clarify that in premarital counseling. That needs to be discussed up front. You need to know what you're getting into. If that's his mindset, then you're in the wrong place.
Right. I think it's also important to recognize that there's some people who are of the persuasion that if you're married, then everything's okay, right? Which maybe is kind of tied into that question. But if you don't have consent, it is rape. That is what it is.
Even if you're
It's not
married.
non-consensual sex, it's rape. So we have to just be clear with that. You don't own me or my body. This is, we have to respect each other and our boundaries at all times, in and outside of the marriage.
And can I
ask that? I'm sorry, Natalie. Just a moment there. I just want to make it very clear. You see, I asked this question because there are men, Christian men, walking around who believes that they cannot rape their wives because their wives' bodies belong to them.
No.
And so this is there are people who are convinced of that. Sorry about that, Natalie.
It's all good. It all goes back to agency, right? That's what we've been talking about, agency and understanding. Basically, as a Christian, you belong to Christ. Like, I don't belong to my husband. I made a decision to share a life with him, but I don't belong to him just as much as he doesn't belong to me. I am my own person. He is his own person too. And I think it's the church, and I'm going to say this and y'all can stone me after. The church has done such a horrible, disgusting job with this. And I'm talking from experience where they would have these family weeks or whatever you call them. I don't know. And they would separate the husbands and the wives, and then they would really drill into the wives that you're supposed to look this way and you belong to your husband. And you shouldn't really say no when your husband wants to have sex. No, that's such a toxic and negative and disgusting way to view things. We are two people. We're two individuals. And when I say no, it means no. I don't need to give an explanation. No. My body does not belong to you. My body belongs first to Christ and it belongs to me. And that is something, again, that you teach your children. You teach your child. When your child feels uncomfortable with something, they say no, you respect that because they're setting a boundary. That is something, again, you can see I'm like very passionate about because I have seen personally so many men that think this way within the church. And I have seen what it does to families, and I have seen how it degrades and devalues the spouses and the other people in the family. This is, I would go as far as to say this thought is satanic. Absolutely not.
Amen. Celeste, we're gonna end it here. Any final points, Celeste, on this? And then we're gonna wrap it up. Or you're just no is just your straight up no, and you're gonna leave it there.
No. No, I think I'm so happy for this discussion. I'm just so happy that we're talking about this, and I'm hopeful that we are raising a next generation of young ladies who value themselves and young men who value women. We've seen the Me Too movement. We see our governor behaving badly, saying he was joking. Like, all of this is just bad behavior, and it's got to stop. And we have to call people out when they do it. And so women need to be able to stand up for themselves, and men need to also stand up as well. When you see bad behavior, call out the other men and say it's not cool, because not that we need allies to fight for us, but having allies, we need to shame them into the right behaviors. So.
Well, on behalf of the Hanson Place Youth Ministries, I want to thank all of you for tuning in this evening. Our program would not be possible if you were not here. I want to thank our panelists, Khadijah, Natalie, Celeste. Give them some love, show them some love on YouTube, and show them some love on Facebook. Ladies, thank you so much. You have been awesome. And this program, I mean, it's a gem. It's something that will should be kept forever, should be preserved forever, should be shared with as many persons as possible. Please, folks, if you found this conversation useful to you, useful to your family, please share this so that somebody else who may need to hear this can hear this and will be helped and will be blessed. Next week, we are having a very intimate program. It's going to be a youth check-in. It's going to be on Zoom. You can come in on Zoom. You'll be able to speak audibly, so not only type. The credentials are there on the screen. You can write them down. We'll put it up on the Facebook page so that you can tune in and be a part of what we are going to do. We're going to have some fun together as well. So we're going to have some time to have fun together, to talk together. And I'm going to talk to my producers. I'm going to see if we can give away some prizes next week. All right. So make sure you take down the information and we'll see. It's my desire to give away some prizes. So do not miss next week at 4 p.m. For our youth check-in. Finally, I just want to let you all know, listen, the gospel when Christ came was practical. And the gospel that you teach, first of all, the gospel that you live in your life should be a practical gospel. The gospel that you teach to your children should be a practical gospel. You cannot make your gospel so theoretical. You cannot make your gospel so theological that it doesn't apply and doesn't touch the everyday life of the persons that you're interacting with. That's why we're here at Hanson Place Youth Ministries. That's why we're here. We are here because we want to provide practical solutions to the problems in this world. So once again, thank you so much for coming. Bow your heads with me wherever you are. Let's have a word of closing prayer. Father, we ask your spirit to be here. You are here. And I thank you for everyone whom you have touched. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
From our family to yours, thank you so much for coming. God bless. Have a wonderful rest of your evening and see you next week.